first National X-Ball League divisional event of 2021 is just on the horizon. Don't miss the NXL Lone Star Amateur Open, going down Friday, March 19th to Sunday, March 21st at Giant Party Sports Paintball and Airsoft Park, just north of Dallas, Texas. The gunfights will rage across 2 different formats, 5-man and X-Ball, with 3 different levels of competition in each format. Make sure to register your team by Wednesday, March 10th, which is the final day to get your squad signed up for the battle. Also, tune in to watch all the action going down on center court, only on GoSports.com.
Welcome to Go Sports Live. I'm Matty Marshall. Got Henry Sentz in the seat today. Going to be talking about his personal performance and his team's performance coming off of the Virginia Paintball Exhibition last weekend. Mark your calendars, though. NXL season is about to start. Heading down to Texas, not this weekend, but the next weekend, March 19th through the 24th. First, looking forward to getting things here kicked off for the 2021 season. All right, so Henry, let's jump into it. First of all, you played your ass off this past weekend. You seem to have a giant chip on your shoulder. I kind of want to go blow for blow. You guys ended up winning the tournament. Obviously, one gigantic, glaring stumbling block along the way. But other than that, it was you guys pretty much, had a pretty outstanding run. Let's start out with, well, first of all, how did you just generally feel going into the event? What were your expectations? How were you looking at it?
Not to sound cocky, we went into it knowing more than likely we were going to win. These are teams that we play normally at the NXL, minus the semi-pro teams, and usually don't have an issue with them other than we have good games with NYX. So we were very confident going into this, but it wasn't taken more so as a tournament as it was an opportunity for us to knock rust off going into the season, right? At the end of the day, people are calling it a tournament. It was a glorified practice.
So you're going into it understanding like, hey, this is a practice. We got some dudes that haven't been able to grind as much in the off season. Some of you guys look sharp, some not so much. I do kind of want to talk because I think with how good you guys did look in almost every single one of the games, except for that Notorious game, which we'll get to in a bit. But you guys looked like the team you should have looked like. When Damage went into the exhibition down in Florida, they mopped the floor with everyone they played, and dudes are just putting on personal clinics out there. And that's kind of like what you guys looked like as well, too. Again, with just the exception of that Notorious game, which we'll crack into in a second. But yeah, you guys looked good, man. I mean, and I think that Revo in 2021, well, what's your expectation? Obviously, you're going to say, oh, we're here to win tournaments, and rightfully so. But I think you guys are at the moment when that is a legit expectation for you guys.
Big expectations for us, right? Like you said, winning a tournament's everyone's goal, but it's more, there's a lot of luck that goes into winning a tournament. We've been in the top 4. We've played our asses off, and the cards just didn't fall in our favor, right? We just weren't lucky that day. World Cup, we weren't lucky. Ryan Greenspan played the best event I've ever personally seen him play, and he put on a clinic against us. Those are personally our goals this year. We want to consistently be in the top 4. More than 50% of the time at the events. I think that's a very realistic goal for the team. If we do come in the second or first, it's a bonus for us, right? There's a lot of teams that are better than us out there that practice a lot harder, and they're a lot more structured. So, at the end of the day, we're realists. We realize that we have to be playing extremely well and be extremely lucky, to get a W at one of these events.
Yeah, obviously you need to have both. It's like we used to always say, I'd rather be lucky than good, and I'd rather be both on Sundays. So you definitely need to be lucky and you need to be good. If you look at take a guy you just talked about and the team you just talked about, Ryan Greenspan and San Diego Dynasty. We went blow for blow in that game with Ryan. There were still moments that he felt that things could have went better for him, and moments where he feels like he dropped the ball, even though he was the Golden Barrel Award winner and the MVP, and his team won the World Cup and he looked badass doing it. So, yeah, definitely the chips do need to fall, but having the right people in the right positions, having the talent that's worked hard and that's experienced, having all those things set up is going to make you luckier And then so when moments do present themselves, the right decisions are being made. Yeah, sure, man, a ball could bounce instead of breaking. And I mean, luck is a big part of every sport, but it's definitely a big part of paintball as well too. But I really, again, if we've been talking about Revo, this is why, and you and I have been wanting to have a show here. We haven't been able to get you on yet, but I'm really happy we're having this moment to talk about it, because I feel that this could be a real huge moment for you guys this year, because you guys have finished top 4 3 times before. You've proven you can beat top teams. You beat Heat twice last year and knocked them out of the tournament. You were their Achilles heel. But let's just kind of talk about the lineup that you guys brought to this past weekend, who was missing, because I feel that you guys are all kind of getting to the point where, like I was texting with Frank, and I feel like Frank still has, and I feel the same way about you. I don't think you guys have reached your best yet. I really still feel like there's higher levels for you guys to get to. Whether or not you can get there, obviously that's up to you. But so let's start with you personally. When I saw you, I was like, oh, what's up, Henry? Still, dude, you didn't get fat at all, bro. You've been in the gym. You've been obviously on the treadmill. And, so I was happy you didn't put on those winter LBs. Can't say that I didn't put them on, but, I'm not out there grinding still. So I was just impressed that you kept your body into shape, and that I was expecting big things out of you this past weekend, and you delivered. I feel we gave you the, unofficial MVP. We didn't really have an MVP award to give out this past weekend, but I thought Frank was in consideration for that as well too. But I just think you personally had more moments because that snake side faltered a little bit. So let's just talk about what you've been doing to prep to get ready for this, and kind of why you still have this giant chip on your shoulder as far as wanting to be one of the best players out there. Because, dude, you were slaughtering people this past weekend. If you can bring that game to the NXL, you could win a golden barrel, legit.
I mean, as far as, the chip on my shoulder, it's personally for me, I'm getting tired of being so close to, cracking into the top 2 and losing. And, I take a lot of responsibility on myself for that too, for potentially underperforming when I should have, or hesitating on a move. And I feel it's costed us. So in this whole off season, Steven and I have played with, the Baltimore Nasty guys a lot. And, I forced myself to play a front role the entire off season, taking myself out of my comfort zone, and, really focused on being more proactive and trying to read and react on situations, something that I feel I've been more so timid in the past. And I think last weekend I was just getting in a groove with that new style that I'm trying to play, and I think it was working well.
It really was. It was, I mean, you've always been a player that I felt played very consistently. I feel that your team could count on you. Not a ton of early deaths. You're there in the scramble, but you're not necessarily, and you've definitely obviously proved yourself and broke some points open and some games open in the past. But I just saw another level for you this past weekend. I know it's, again, practice, but there wasn't top teams there. You guys were the best team there on paper, but you still looked like what a top level guy is supposed to look like in a situation like that. Running through, shooting 2-3 guys sometimes, getting a 4-pack here or there, winning in the counter punch when it's not looking good for you and bodies are dropping in front of you, playing a good support role when the guys in front of you are playing well. I mean, you kind of did everything you were supposed to do this past weekend. I mean, yeah, sure, you guys played a ton of games and a ton of points. You did die a couple times here or there needlessly, but it was very infrequent. It didn't happen that often, enough that I was thinking, man, Henry really looks good. Revo looks good in general. And we will get to the Notorious game. But to me, that was such a simple diagnosis as to what went wrong there. Because you guys started out amazing. You beat the brakes off the ML Kings, and then you beat Carolina Crisis. 1 point was scored on you guys in the first 2 games. Everyone looked good. Obviously, and this is where I kind of want to talk about the roster a little bit. So you didn't have Matt Derula there. And Dan Zaleski hasn't picked up a paintball gun in a while, but he has committed to play the year. So, but I'll let you take away with the rest of the guys, and then we can discuss how we feel everybody played.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we didn't have Matt Derula there, and anybody that's watched us in the past knows he's a big staple for the team. That's a guy that, in my opinion, could play on any team. So that definitely, we had to fill a void with him not being there. I think it's been over a year since Dan's actually touched a gun. It and we had myself and Steven, Frank and Zupa, our new pickup Chris Shear, who was formerly of NRG Elite, and then Jack Walchesson and Jake Madden, who are our new kids who were playing semi-pro 2 years ago, who we're building up in our camps right now for, you know, the longevity of the team. When we start losing more guys, we already have guys in the camp.
So that's the roster, and you got those dudes some spins. Obviously, Chris Shear played a lot. Let's talk about Chris first. It was funny because I didn't know that it was Chris Shear on that D side. I didn't, because you know, we've been talking about who's going to show up, and I'm like, okay, I know there's no Derula, so was Shear was kind of like a little bit of a last minute pickup, or is that somebody that you guys have been looking at for a while? Because I'm looking at him like, well, that's definitely not. He's wearing a Trailer jersey, but that's definitely not Max Trailer. And then no Max Trailer there as well too, because people have been watching your team for a while. So Max is not going to be there for this year? That's another roster situation?
Max is not committed to play the season. Obviously, he just had another kid, you know, and he's got real life stuff going on. I think if we called on Max for an event here and there, that he would come out and play. But I think committing for a full season is just unrealistic for him right now.
Okay, so let's stay on Shear. So when did you guys make that decision? And because I kept looking over there and I'm seeing this guy wearing Max Trailer jersey that's not Max Trailer, and I'm like, I don't think that's Pike either. He doesn't play like Pike. He doesn't really, I mean, kind of the similar build, but anyway. And then you came up, you're like, how'd you think Chris Shear played over on the D side? I'm like, oh, that was Chris Shear? I thought he played pretty damn good for you guys, even in the game you guys lost. So when did that kind of happen?
So Chris wasn't somebody we were seeking out or talking to over the offseason. We had tryouts the weekend before the invitational event. Chris showed up. You know, we talked, and, you know, he said, you know, what are you guys looking for? I said, we need someone who's going to break games open in a one roll. And he played with us all day on Saturday and just played out of his mind. Really kind of fit into the dynamic of the team, was meshing really well with the guys, you know, on and off the field. You know, he's a great dude. And, you know, we took it as an opportunity to invite him last weekend. And I mean, obviously anybody that saw knew that he was playing lights out the whole weekend. So that was really a no-brainer for us just to sign him on.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely made sense. I thought another interesting thing for you guys moving forward is very similar to the best teams in the world. You guys were starting to move players around and not just play them in one position. Shear pretty much played that specific spot on the D side for the majority of the points, but you were moving Frank Antetomaso in different spots, and I thought he shined on the D side. I thought he shined on the snake side. O'Mara also ended up stepping up and playing the snake. Let's talk about Dan first, though, before we kind of get into the diverse attack that you had out there in your looks. Yeah, Dan looked a little rusty, but Dan also, he had a couple decent points out there. But dude, if you haven't touched a paintball gun in a long time and you come out to essentially what is a little mini tournament with refs, and I mean, it's definitely kind of just diving right back in not to the complete deep end, because it's not like you had other top 10 teams there. But it was that's an easy way to kind of have a rough day, is to jump into that sort of situation. But we know that, I mean, you don't get offers from top level teams over the years like Dan has gotten, and not be an amazing paintball player. So I have no doubt that Dan will become a crucial part of your guys' attack again. And then, you know, after beating the ML Kings and beating Crisis 7-1 and 6-0, again, only 1 point scored on you guys. Then you guys go play your last and third game of the day on Saturday and go down big to Austin Notorious, you know, who was a D2 team to that point in time. And everyone was shocked. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe Revo lost this. And I'm watching this happen, and I'm looking at Rich. We even called it. You guys were watching it at home. People watching it now were like, oh, they have zero attack on the snake side. It's not a giant mystery why they're losing this game. And then you guys just never really adjusted. And I asked you, I'm like, were you guys intentionally playing that game as like a practice thing and not attacking the snake side on purpose? And you're like, no, our guys just had a really terrible game that specific moment, and that's it. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly it. So let's talk about that loss a little bit, because Notorious was a big story. I mean, you guys were expected to come and smash everybody and win the tournament. You came in, smashed everybody but Notorious. Energy gave you guys a little bit of run in the end of that, or in the very end of the day, but that game still ended with a really high point differential for you guys. So you guys definitely still smashed them, even though they put up the most points that anybody else other than Notorious put up against you guys. But let's just kind of like, do you feel like you guys slept on that team a little bit? Kind of came in thinking, oh, we're going to smash these dudes like we've been smashing everybody else?
I 100% feel that way. Our team has a really bad problem of playing down the lesser teams, and it's something we preached over and over and over and over again, because any given day anybody can beat anyone, and that's exactly what happened. They came to play that match, and some of our guys were very complacent. I don't know if they thought we were just going to win, or if they didn't take it as serious. But I mean, you saw 3 of our starting players played catch the whole match.
Yeah,
Steven, one of them, who was arguably, in my opinion, one of the best players to play the game. And I think the mentality just wasn't there. The hunger and the fight wasn't there. And, those kids came out to prove a point, and I think a lot of our team walked on the field with the expectations of blowing another team out, and they got a reality check really quick. Notorious played extremely well. We did not. It's just as simple as that, They were flying down the snake, shooting people off the break, capitalizing, playing like a real team should, and we look like a bunch of lost kids out there running around on the field.
But so you guys almost came back to tie it, though. It was pretty interesting because as we're watching this, we're like, okay, Revo's, in my mind, I'm thinking, and I was looking at Richmond like, hey, what's going on? We were saying it obviously during the live call, but I was just kind of waiting for you guys to wake up at some point in time and start living and attacking on that snake side, because your D side was not doing terrible. I mean, you were for the most part staying alive. Obviously, you weren't playing the D side, but but Chris and Frank, for the most part over there, they were staying alive, but it was just, Zupa, Omara, and Zaleski just could not stay alive, period. And no one was pushing down the snake side. So no one on their D side ever had to worry about getting shot in the side. Their black players had no pressure on from the snake side. And as this is going down, everything, we even said it at one point in time during the game. I'm like, well, look across the board. I mean, Revo, the rest of the team's not doing that bad. Snake side, you get an F in this game. Like, this is absolutely terrible. Like, you're going to lose every single game you play if this is what happens on this side of the field on pretty much any layout. But then you guys woke up with 1 minute and 42 seconds left and almost scored 3 points in 1 minute and 42 seconds. You put up the first 2 in, I think, like 40 something seconds, and then almost scored the third one. But you needed just, I want to say, maybe another 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds to get that tying point on the board. So it ended up on paper being a 1-point loss, even though you guys kind of really didn't start playing hardcore Revo paintball until about 1 minute and 48 seconds left. So it was a really entertaining game to watch because of how cool the story was for Notorious. We're going to have one of the guys from Notorious on hopefully next week, either Marky Franz or Keegan Lauder. They both played really well. So we'll see their side of the story. But they had one of their guys get hurt. They only had 5 guys. So they kind of, it was tough for them to stay kind of, just to have the capacity to play every single point the entire tournament. But they got really up for you guys. I mean, they said, honestly, coming here, we wanted to play Revo. Because Brandon White was hurt and he was up in the booth with us the entire time watching all of his guys. And when we talked to him, hey, it's great you guys took this opportunity to come play his teams. That's exactly. He's like, we looked at it as an opportunity, because if we can come and play against the Revos of the world and all these other teams and these pro teams, like, this is what we want, because we want to be here one day. So it was just a cool story, but that caused you guys to then start screaming at each other in your pit, in your staging area. And then you had said you guys went and had a pretty vicious meeting. And I've had, the laundry list of the top players in the world. We've had them on the show before and talked to them about these exact instances where being willing to go to battle with your friends and your brothers in these conversations is kind of part of the secret sauce. So talk to me a little bit about what happened after that loss and what you kind of, like, as a team, what were you thinking? How were you feeling? What was said?
Again, anybody that watched the match saw, we had no presence on the snake side. So that was the first thing we adjusted, talking with Zupa and Dan, basically asking them what they need to be able to create offense on that side. Once we nip that, and not the single guys out on the team, we talked to Steven, about not playing individual. He said, dialing it back. Let's do it together, right? Because that match was very individual based, other than Sheer and Frank on the Dorito side, who played very good paired paintball over there. So the big discussion in the whole entire meeting was, 5 guys playing together instead of individual guys going out there to win a match. And it never works when you have too many individual guys out there doing their own thing. And that was like the huge focus of the meeting, was based around that, creating offense, no longer being complacent, just being the first team to throw punches and react off the chaos.
So one of the reasons I think that I wanted to talk to you about this specific moment right here is because so many teams have been in this situation. Every team, if you play tournament paintball, you've been in this situation. You've lost to a team you're not supposed to lose to, and you're now trying to figure out the best way to fix the problem. So if you had to give some advice, I mean, or based on what you've seen even just from this past weekend, how do you deal with those situations? I mean, how do you have these hard conversations with your players where obviously sometimes, then depending on who it is, sometimes you just go right at a guy because he can take it. Other guys, you got to dance around with the plays. You got to kind of, man, how am I going to break this to this dude because he played absolutely terrible, and I need him to play well. We need this guy to not get completely messed up in the head based on this situation. So what advice would you give to people in that situation? I mean, you guys were just in this situation, and then it worked, because then you guys come back and just destroyed New York Extreme the next day, which we'll get to in a bit here. But I just think this is a big glaring hole that everyone has to be in at some point in time. It's a tough pit to be in, but you have to climb out of it. How do you climb out of that pit?
I mean, you can't be afraid to hurt somebody's feelings. You go to a tournament, there's only so many opportunities you get. You can't just bite your tongue and hope somebody does better. If someone's sucking, you need to call them out on it. And like with our team, we're very good about staying on top of each other, motivating each other. Frank is one of the best people on the team for that. But we're generally good. Sometimes we get a little too aggressive with attacking a guy, and somebody gets their feelings hurt. But I think that's normal. It's just, trying to be a man about it and realize, you're not performing for your team, and you need to sack up. And that's kind of what, we have been better and better about. It's like the guys on our team know if they're not performing, they're not going to play. Nobody's given the opportunity to play at a tournament. They're given a chance to prove themselves to play at a tournament. And I think if teams take that approach, instead of people going into it saying, I'm going to play, it's like, no, you're only going to play if you earn the spot to play. And that's something we've always been really good at. Like, I've sat in tournaments, Steven sat in tournaments, Dan sat a decent amount last weekend. So everyone's got to be willing, to go to the next level for the team, whether it be you're in the pits or on the field. And if you're not the guy who's performing and helping the team, step back, fill pods, and help out.
Yeah. So then you guys, because we were wondering how you were going to respond, because that Notorious game was the last game of the day for you. So the last paintball you played was the attempted comeback, and again, just needed maybe a second and a half to tie that game up. So you take the loss. I can hear you guys screaming at each other because your staging area is right next to, kind of down below where the booth was that we were doing the commentary from. And I kind of came around and almost wanted to say, hey, Henry, it's no big mystery. Just look at, because right above you guys were like, hey, no big mystery, no big deal. Your snake side was absolutely terrible, but it was great. The couple of games before, just that's it. Fix it, move on. Like, you guys don't need to, but you guys were just screaming at each other so much that I'm like, I'm just going to let them handle this. I'm not going to say anything. But I'm glad that you guys were able to have a productive meeting and move on, because then you had a big game the next day against a rivalry, or against one of your main rivals in New York Extreme. Now, obviously on paper, you guys have done a lot better historically than New York Extreme. You guys have played each other 4 times in the NXL. You beat them 3. You've only lost to them once. That loss got a lot of publicity, though, because it happened to be when you guys made a bet. So, there was that big, situation there. But let's just talk to me. I know this kind of it pisses you off a ton because you guys are a better team than New York Extreme, but I want to get your thoughts on where your head was at going into that match. Because I saw you before. You looked very determined. We had a long conversation in the parking lot. You didn't look pumped up. You looked incredibly focused. You were like a Zen samurai warrior that knows exactly what he's about to do before he goes into the slaughter. Like, that's what you looked like that morning. It was cool. I was happy for you because then you stepped up and you shot Harris Hussein 3 times personally yourself, and you guys ended up beating him by mercy rule. So talk to me about the headspace you were in before you went into that game.
So that, for the record, that was the first time we've ever played MYX at a tournament to where they were not our first game, right? Our team is very cold starting. You know, Harris and Bo can argue this all they want. Sorry, we're the top seed coming into our bracket. You're the bottom seed. You get to play a game first. It sucks to suck, you know? So they're our warm-up game. They catch us cold. We usually beat them by a point, or they've beaten us by a point. It happens. So as I told you in the parking lot going into this match, we're warmed up. We're pissed off. We're going to beat them by 6 points, guaranteed. You know, I had no doubts in that match. I knew how our team was playing, and I knew how aggravated everyone was. And, you know, as badly as everybody hates to lose at paintball, right, the Notorious game didn't really bother us. We lost the match because we didn't play well. I will not lose to Harris. I will not lose to MYX and hear the shit talk. Right, so we went out there, and you could clearly see it. We were bunkering dudes after points were conceded. We were shooting people into the ground.
Shooting them off the field. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So, you know, they got the full force when we were warmed up and angry. No excuses. We beat the living breaks off of them. How they can contest that we're even in the same tier of teams is ridiculous, because I think we beat them, what was it, 8-2 with what, 3 or 4 minutes left on the clock?
Yeah, it was 8-2. There, I think there might even have been more time than that. I'd have to go back and check, but yeah, I have it right here in front of me. It was 8-2. And one of the points that they scored against you was a penalty on, I believe, Zupa, I want to say. Zupa, I'm sorry if it wasn't you, but there was a penalty. It was a penalty on Zupa, I believe. It took your whole snake side off again, and we saw what happens when you have 0 snake presence. So they went down and won that game, that point, pretty quick. And that was kind of early on too. Other than that, so they really only scored 1 legit point against you. And yeah, that was a beating, dude. They had a lot of frustrations. Now, New York Extreme look, everyone has their explanations as to why they don't have their best lineup out there. You were missing some of your lineup. You didn't have Darula. You're trying Chris Shear out. You don't know how he's going to be playing. Dan hasn't picked up a gun in forever. I mean, you guys had your own excuses and explanations as to, you know, how you're going to be better. So New York Extreme obviously has some of their own as well too. Tim Stetzel blew his shoulder out at work. That was incredibly bad news for them and for their chances this year. It's a terrible thing. But yeah, you did call your shot, Henry. You definitely call your shot. I saw you that morning in the parking lot. You looked like a stone cold killer. You looked pissed off but focused, and you're like, we are going to mercy rule them. It's like, if Harris starts chirping in our ear, I'm telling the dudes, hey, just everyone calm down. We're not gonna like, yeah, we're definitely gonna punish these dudes with our paintballs, but we're not gonna feed into any of his nonsense. And I promise you, we're going to mercy rule them. The biggest way to embarrass them, because they try to embarrass you, you know, because you guys lost to Notorious. So they're putting kids in Notorious jerseys and making Instagram posts, which are, you know, I mean, it's legit hilarious. It's definitely funny, but it's also got to be super frustrating for you guys. But they definitely were poking the stick at the bear, because you guys came out and, again, 8-2 win. And then you put it on the Outlaws in the next game too. You didn't even let the Outlaws score a point on you. So again, if we remove the Notorious game, we have the beating you put on ML King 7-1, beat the hell out of Crisis 6-0, and then you beat up on New York Extreme 8-2, and then you didn't let the Outlaw score a point. So basically every game you're winning as a mercy rule. And then that Energy Elite game, they did score some points on you, but that was also a ridiculous beating as well. So, you know, that one Notorious game was the outlier, but I think that because of how well you guys did look, and then how that specific game, it's like, you know, the paintball gods, maybe they set it up for you that way, so that with this, you were forced to have a little bit of humiliation and a little bit of hardcore conversation and that is going to make you guys better because, like you said, it's a practice tournament, man. You know, it's not the NXL. Yeah, there's a trophy there, and yeah, everybody wants to win, but you know, it's not the NXL. It's not, all the best teams aren't there, and you guys are a team that has made Sundays. I mean, if you go back and look at how how well you guys have done recently. I mean, you guys have been the only Sunday that you haven't made, I think, in the past 2.5 seasons was World Cup a couple years ago. You know, that's it. I mean, you guys are, you're always there on Sundays. The question for you is how do you do on Sunday? I mean, World Cup has not been, you took 7th at this one, 10th at the year before, and then 11th. You guys barely missed it before that, but you guys you're making Sundays. I mean, what do you think it's going to take? If I gotta ask you that question, because everyone's always asking themselves that question, whatever team they may be on. But seeing as to where you guys are now, I mean, what do you think it's going to take for you guys to get to that next level? Because look at AC Dallas, right? I mean, and you and I had talked about this too. I mean, you guys are not that old yet. I feel like you guys are in the prime of your lives, late 20s, early 30s, I think. But everyone has been doing this for a long time, and the question is always asked once a team has been around for a bit is like, well, how long can they keep it going? You look at AC Dallas. They made it to the finals 4 times, couldn't win an event. Eventually, their inability to win one of those. If they had won an event, I don't know if they'd still be together. I'm not sure. If COVID hadn't happened, maybe they'd still be together. I don't know, but you can't read the winds of fate. Things happen the way they happen, and you'd have to deal with it. But I think you guys are on the precipice. But in your own words, what do you think you need?
We just need to find that extra gear on Sunday. Vegas and World Cup this year, I think Zupa kind of gassed out our last match, and rightfully so. He was the main snake guy, playing probably 50, 60 points leading up until the semifinals in Vegas, and the quarterfinal match against Dynasty. We had no real other person to put in the snake other than Zupa. We didn't have Dan in Vegas. We only had 5 starting players in World Cup. So, I mean, we have one guy, Fall, we were riding on the whole time. And, when you got one leg to Falls, it just crumbles after that. That's what happened against Dynasty. You could clearly see we had guys who retired. Like I said, we had 5 guys playing the entire event, every single point. So now that's kind of like the main focus. Like, prime example, last weekend, you saw our coach rotating everyone in every position throughout the whole tournament. Right. That way we're able to have guys deep into the tournament, say Zupa or Dan get tired, then we rotate Frank over to the snake side, put somebody else to the Dorito side. And, that allows us to be less scoutable. We have more depth in the roster. Now we have Sheer on the team who can play the one on the Dorito side or the one on the snake side. I've been getting moved around. Derola can play everywhere. Steven can play everywhere. So we're kind of more so focusing on having players not play positions, but playing roles and being able to do that role on either side of the field. And that's the big focus this year is, hopefully that'll allow us to go deeper into the tournament on Sunday when guys start to be tired.
I agree. I liked it when I saw it. I liked seeing the audibles and the positions and the different spots that the guys were playing. And, the first time I'm like, is this Frank playing the snake side? Awesome. And he had a great point. I thought Frank Antetomaso played his ass off this past weekend. When we were kind of sitting there and talking, okay, well, if this was an NXL, Revo wins this tournament, who would we give the NXL award? Because that, at the end of the event, I always got Jason Trozen coming up to me and being like, all right, who gets it? And sometimes it's blatantly apparent. Sometimes it's super obvious. And other times we have to have a long ass conversation about it, where I got to, ask. I mean, I'm always asking everybody anyway, including a lot of times the coach of that squad. But for this one, it was either I felt it was obviously you because you had a tougher task because your side played a little bit more inconsistent than Frank's side, even though Frank was but Frank's versatility gave him a notch up in it too. And he just didn't really make too many mistakes. I mean, Frank was outstanding on the attack. He played vicious when he needed to. He was dropping, dudes on big run throughs when he needed to. And he was incredibly versatile. I thought, and Frank's a guy really still feel has a lot of room left to grow. I don't think we've seen nearly as good of a Frank Antetomaso as we will see, I don't know when it's going to be, but I think he's already outstanding. But, we always have that question. It's like guys that can flirt with elite status. And you don't get to be elite unless you're helping a team win tournaments. Like I'm not bringing out the name elite. I may say you may look occasionally like you could be elite, but if you're not a team or a guy that has been on teams that has won tournaments, like you don't get to claim that word for you. We're not going to give that to you. But that's what I'm starting to kind of see here, though, is it's always about the decisions that are made. Particularly, it's like if you're up on bodies, what move are you going to make? If you're down bodies, what type of move do you make? How are you acting in your gunfights when it's 5-on-5? All these little tiny things we're always looking at that we might not necessarily have time to say because there's 5 dudes shooting at 5 dudes and all this stuff's going on, but we're still looking at that. And so when those moments when you kind of see, and that's kind of what I'm looking at. And again, the proof is in the results. Again, you guys have done really well at top 4 multiple times. And you've beat teams that have won world championships. So it's in there somewhere, but can you, like you said, be lucky enough to string it and good enough to string it together? But when you see how well Frank's playing, how well Amara played, if we just take out that Notorious game, I thought, and I've sung Amara's praises forever. I mean, he was the very first standout from your crew. Amara proved that he probably, this is years ago. I'm talking about right now. Obviously, he could play on any team, but back then it was like this guy could probably play on any team in the league. And he still has it. Amara's nasty. I mean, he's a huge threat. Amara on his best days is elite of elite. I feel if I were picking an all-star team, I might grab Amara for it because he plays ruthless up the center of the field. And those guys are not a dime a dozen. And he has also shown the versatility that, he's perfect size to play wherever. He could play probably any spot on the paintball field. So, he had one point where he shot in the back as a 3, shot a dude off the break, filled up in the center and had like a 2-something run pack up. Then that center kind of sucked at that last layout. That is not a fun center of the field to play. It's a little complicated. So yeah, I think that it's looking pretty solid for you guys. But we got a little bit of time left. I got to ask you your thoughts on some of these other groups, though, because they're trying to get better, and then I also want to ask you your thoughts on some of the top teams out there before I let you go. But I got to start with New York Extreme, just because it's just, I know you are good friends actually with Harris, but you guys are straight frenemies. I asked him about you guys, so I got this, and now that I got you on the show, I'm just putting this one on a tee for you. You can say whatever you want, So, what are your thoughts on New York Extreme?
I'll keep it real, right? Like there's talented players on that team. They are terrible as playing as a team. There's a lot of Chiefs on that team, not enough Indians, and you got guys running around doing whatever they want to do. And there's no reason with the players they have on that team that they shouldn't be making Sunday. As bad as it hurts me to say it, Harris is a good paintball player. He gets the game. Pat Kraft is good. Jerry Caro is going to help them. Josh Taylor, Greg, Will, Stetzel if he can come back. But they are just so naive as what it takes to win together. It just looks like they're all trying to do it individually. And, you see it with Harris. He's just running all around the field, rolling around like a bowling ball. And does it look good on camera? Like, does he make some good moves here and there? Yeah. Is that what their team needs to win? No. And that's why I think they're always suffering. And I think that's why we were able to beat them as badly as we did. They're running around, trying to do whatever they can to shoot a body, and we're just trying to embarrass the team. But I do have respect for those guys. They do know how to play paintball. Do I ever want to lose to them? No. Do I hate the shit talking? Do I want to hear the shit talking? No. But at the end of the day, I do respect them as a team. They're all good guys, right? We all have fun, and we're able to have this rivalry and talk all this smack because we like each other. It's not personal. It's at the end of the day, nobody wants to lose to their friends. But I can confidently say they will never beat Revo again if they continue to play the way they do.
To me, I thought the bright shining light for them this past weekend was Taylor. Josh Taylor is getting really good at paintball, man. He played pretty well for them, and they didn't have the best look at World Cup. And Taylor just stays alive. He's a good gunfighter. He's making smart, intelligent decisions. He looked really good this past weekend. I thought Jerry Carl is Jerry Carl's an offensive beast. He's going to be a great weapon and a threat for them. But he's also in that situation where he's trying to prove himself to his new squad. And so he's kind of getting to the point where he's revving the engine up just a little bit too much. Rich and I even went up to him at one point in time during the weekend. We're like, hey, dude, your offensive mindset's at a 10 right now. I need you at like a 9.59. I just need you to just click it back a notch, because he was just overextending a couple times, getting shot in crucial spots a couple moments. But he'd also be bookending that with multiple big-time run-throughs where he's shooting a ton of guys. So, I'm not going to criticize him or tell him too much, because I think Carl is going to be a really solid threat for them, and they're going to need it if Stetzel's out. I think Hennessy plays like Hennessy always does. We'll see when Pat Kraft comes back. And then they picked up CJ Cantor this past weekend. I think they're picking him up. He actually kind of similar to Shear. Thought Shear had a better weekend by a bit, but Cantor was another guy that was just omnipresent on that D side, staying alive. And I think he could be a fit for them. They definitely need bodies. I do agree with you, though, that their game plans and their teamwork isn't where it needs to be. They are kind of just freestyling it out there a little bit too much, and that'll get you to Sundays sometimes. If you are elite, then you can make that work on a Sunday. Houston Heat has proven that, but it's very difficult to do. So, and again, there is a reason why you guys are struggling to do well on Sundays, but they're omnipresent on Sundays. Again, only one time in the past 2.5 years that you guys haven't made a Sunday, and then and why they're having a hard time making it to Sundays. So, but they're a fun team to watch, and I really send my best thoughts out to Stetzel, because I thought he could have a potentially awesome 2021. He's a young kid; he's real hungry to get after it, but that's going to be a big loss for them. I thought that the ML Kings guys they have a cool story going on. I feel like they look better in Florida, and some of those guys are from Florida, so maybe like hometown or home field vibes, even if not necessarily always home field for those guys, but they didn't really, and it was obviously super cold out there for guys from Florida. Not all those guys are from Florida, and they're working different guys in. To me, a big bright shining light for them was that Betancourt kid on the Snake side. And you guys are pretty familiar, though, right, with Betancourt. So talk to me a little bit about Lewis.
Lewis at the event, it surprised me a little bit. The field that Steven and I practice at, he practices there every single weekend. He drills all day. He puts in the work. But he definitely played a lot more timid than what I'm used to seeing him play. And I think if he played a little bit more foot on the gas, it would have went a long way for them. Because, when I was talking to you, how many times did we see Snake players get into Snake, nobody in front of them, they sit in Snake 1 and look inside, looking to get a shot across field instead of going to their end. And, that frustrated me seeing him do that a little bit when he's easily one of the more aggressive players that I've seen. And that kid's got a bright future ahead of him as long as he keeps working at it. He's got good gun skills. He's fast. He's aggressive. And the kid's mean. He wants to go out there and rip people's heads off.
Yeah, didn't you say something that because he plays on a practice squad against you guys, and you guys would just pump him into the ground, and then he would just pop right back up like nothing happened, and then just be totally fine and come back for more and do that point after point after point after point?
All the time. And it's funny because like him and Steven always end up like bunkering the hell out of each other and stuff like that. And it's funny, like right before we even played them, he walked up to me and was like, "You're not ready for the smoke." And I'm like, "Oh no, you shouldn't have said that." So, the last point of the match, I had to give him a little extra love when I bunkered him, to remind him.
There was, it definitely felt like, it felt like one of the old school tournaments where bonus balling wasn't really enforced too much, because there was a ton of bonus balls out there, which again, my salty old veteran soul loved. Just it shows me that people are still shooting paintballs at each other in anger. And you and I had talked a little bit about this because you're a really nice guy. We were talking about this is a constant presence of constant talk track. This is a theme that we always discuss with people, but really do feel that you have to summon that darker elements of your personality within the nets. And again, you're a super nice guy. I mean, even I gave you a chance to just tee off on New York Extreme, and you were like, I'll keep it real. And I was like, well, this could get interesting. And then you said, actually legit, not hyping it up, but not hyping the rivalry, but it is a legit rivalry. But you said some correct things, the things I totally agree with. You could have just shit on those dudes if you want, because it was your opportunity to say whatever you wanted to do. But you're a nice guy. You're a smart, intelligent, nice guy. You got a regular job. You got a regular life and things you got going on. But as we saw this past weekend, given the opportunity to go out there and summon the beast, that's exactly what you did personally, and the guys on your team did. And you definitely played like a man who is very, very focused on trying to put your stamp on the game in the time you have left here. And because personally you have a cool story. We've discussed this before, but that was a while ago. I mean, you had to lose a ton of weight to be able to get your body into shape. This was years ago. But how much did you weigh at one point in time? And I use you as one of those examples because sometimes guys will come up and they'll be, because A-Rod was like this too. And there's a couple of these awesome stories of guys that were, definitely way too overweight to be able to use their body in a way that they're going to be awesome at paintball. They were good at paintball, but then really focused on trying to get it together and became an awesome success story. So what did you weigh at one point in time?
At my heaviest, I was 255 with a 46 waist. And that was my first year in the pro division. Yeah.
And what do you weigh now? I mean, you can't, I don't even think you're 200 pounds probably now, maybe around 200 pounds.
No, when I weighed in last Friday, I was like 190, 195, 196. I'm a little heavier right now than I want to be, but our gyms were shut down for 4 months. It's hard to stay motivated to train when you can't go.
Yeah. And again, we've had this conversation, but I just think that if this might save some kid's life out there, maybe, who knows, but it is, because this is possible, because it was kind of like, what was the trigger for you? A-Rod had said some people had come up to him and, he obviously things weren't super awesome for him growing up, but he kind of just a switch flipped and he realized kind of slowly but surely, but also then realizing in a moment, like, all right, well, this is something I want to change. And then he just kind of dedicated himself, and now he's one of the best killers that we've ever seen. And you were the best killer period at that weekend with all the teams that we saw there. Like I said, we would have given you the MVP if there was one to give. Was there like a moment you had that a switch just flipped, or was it a gradual thing for you?
I mean, at the time, you remember Chris Lloyd, who used to play for us, was my best friend.
Yeah.
Worked out every day with him. And, he was the type of the friend that called it how it is. He's like, you're a fat piece of shit. He's like, you need to lose weight, every single day in the gym, just reminding me. And, it's oddly enough, it was Easter weekend. I was just sitting there kind of thinking about it, and it was getting tired of just hearing it over and over and over again and living that lifestyle. And, the day after Easter, I went on a kick and, started working out, cut all carbs out, no more sugar, and just really, really went at it for 6 straight months with, no cheat meals, no bullcrap food, and just kind of saw what I was able to do in that time and just kind of got hooked to it. Like, I get hooked to doing activities, and I was in love with going to the gym and having that sensation of when I walk out of the gym, nothing else mattered. I felt great, and I was kind of riding on a high horse there and was just addicted to that feeling and wanted to go every single day and see the results.
And then when you started to shrink and you were playing paintball, how did that make you feel once you started to realize, wow, I'm able to do stuff maybe I can make it through this gap now? It kind of frees you up to come up with some new possibilities and opportunities out there on the field.
Well, it definitely made it a lot easier to hide behind a bunker, when I lost like half of my body, because at that time in paintball, we were taking a beating, and, there was somebody always on our side of the field shooting me in the back of the head. So I was able to dodge that a little bit easier. And then, it's funny because that was the year the NXL came out. We went to Cleveland. That's when I was starting to lose the weight. And then the next event was at Virginia Beach. And our coach is like, hey, you're playing a snake now. I'm like, all right, let's go. And being able to play a national level in a different position of something I wasn't used to, it was exciting for me. It was something new. It was something I wasn't used to. I didn't have to be the quarterback on the field. I could just kind of run around and be an idiot and try to shoot people. And, that was something totally different than I was used to. It was motivating for me to be able to, now I wasn't so one dimensional. I was able to be put in different positions.
Do you feel that you have less patience with people because you came up the hard way, man? This is, you guys did take your licks and till you got good. You were a big dude and then decided that I don't want to be a big dude anymore. I'm gonna lose that weight. You lost the weight. You've slowly but surely carved yourself into what you are today. Does that kind of make you a little bit less patient with people that don't have that willpower to do that? Or do you feel like you want to help lever those guys up? Or, how do you kind of look at that? Because you just, every time I talk to you now, you just seem, obviously, I always enjoy speaking to you because you're a super nice dude and you're intelligent, but you also seem to have this like focus now. You guys were always focused. Everyone you talk to at tournaments, it's like, oh, we're here doing this and we're doing that. Hey, what's up? Good to see you. But you seem to have this like no bullshit, like kind of ice in your eyes in the best way possible, because it just seems like you really are laser focused on trying to be one of the best, if not the best. So, does that kind of come from having been through all these struggles and you're just like over it? It's time now.
Yeah, I'm tired of being right there and losing. It's repetitive. I don't like it. Prime example, I remember a post Dave Painter put up when they were 187. It was, when they were going years after years without making Sunday, then they had 2 top 4 finishes back to back. And then the next event, they didn't make the Sunday. And he put up a post, when Sunday's just not enough anymore. And that's how it feels to me. Like making Sunday for us, like that's no reward, right? That's where we should be as a team. Making the top 4, that's where we should be. And now for me, it's like we've made the top 4. We've taken 4th place 3 times. It's not enough, right? So going that far, coming that close, and then, losing and going home, it's a waste of time for me. Time is precious. There's a lot of other things I could do in life. I'm choosing to do this. I want to be the best at this and I want to win. There's a lot of guys on our team that want to win an event before they retire. And it's very, very important for us. And I think this year it's going to be a new focus. Frank's back in the gym working out every day, cutting weight again. I'm cutting weight again. Dan went from not playing paintball for a year to now he's playing this weekend as well, going to play a 10-man event. We got guys in our chat wanting to meet up and go drill. I think everyone's just had enough of being right there and just not being able to close. It's the biggest kick in the nuts. It's a sick feeling going home, knowing we were right there, not winning, and then having to live with that for an entire off season or between events. It's just because in our minds, we can win an event, but we're also holding ourselves back from winning an event.
Well, I think you guys got a chance, man. I really do. I've been saying this to anyone that'll listen for a little bit. And then I obviously with last year and how everything and how all these teams pivoted and had to readjust with COVID. I was just, to me, obviously you guys lost to Notorious at this last invitational or exhibition. But just seeing how you responded to that and how you had the meetings you needed to have, talking to you a bunch, talking to Frank, just kind of talking to everybody, seeing the vibe, talking to Zupa. I do think you guys have a legit chance to win tournaments. Obviously, it is going to be very difficult because things have never been more competitive. So before I let you go, the last question is just give me the name of 2 teams that you feel, all right, end of the year, World Cup finals, it's Revo versus who do you see at the other side at that other start gate? Who do you think looks really good this year? Who do you think it could be a couple teams? It doesn't have to be necessarily just 2, but we don't have a ton of time left. But in just the next couple minutes, who do you think? Who do you think is going to be top tier this year?
First pick would probably easily be X Factor. That's a team that is just been putting on clinics every event, and if Archie was healthy at Cup and didn't get hurt, I mean, I think that match usually goes the other way. You always got to put the Russians in the equation. You know, those guys are always right there. And then I would put Dynasty there as well. I don't think Impact's going to be there this year.
Okay. Well, let me ask you why. Because those other 2 or 3 teams, obviously, you and I could spend an hour talking about those three squads. But what about, why do you think no Impact? Since that is a controversial opinion.
I watch a lot of paintball at the gym every night when I'm doing cardio, and I watched a lot of their games from Cup. And their style with not having the Canadians on the team right now, I don't know when they're coming back with COVID restrictions in Canada, but they're very undisciplined. You know, you have A-Rod running around kind of headhunting, and it seemed like he wasn't really playing a role. And, you know, Impact's biggest strength, like, of course, they have the best front players in the world, but they also had the best defensive line, too, that you could never crack through. You know, J-Rab, you know, the Yak Max, you know, all those guys who were always there, rarely died. And, you know, now you don't have that consistency as a core there. I think it's really going to hurt them. I mean, they made top 4 at World Cup, but I don't think they look nearly as good as what they've have in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with you. Zach Yakimek is obviously incredibly elite. He's won multiple MVPs. He's one of the best 2s ever to do it. He really complements his 1s and his ability to finish. And not having him there hurt. Cornell is amazing. It is interesting that you say that when those guys are down to their last couple, that's a problem, because we've seen this quite a bit too. Is the ice cream man coming by or what, dude?
No, house phone, sorry.
So it is definitely going to be interesting to see how that, but that's their story. I mean, that's why it's going to be fun. Like every single team we have in here. I mean, this is why I like coming to these exhibitions, because it's the lower ranked pro teams for the most part, with a couple, you know, the best teams sprinkled in, like you guys in Damage the past couple ones. But it kind of shows you these other stories. So with Impact, that's going to be the question with Impact is, how are they going to respond? I mean, they picked up a couple different dudes. I mean, they're going to have a different look. They've, you know, constantly been willing to jumble their roster around in order to try to put their best guys out there. I mean, Dave Baines and Bart are some of the best recruiters in the business. But yeah, I think it is that's, I can't necessarily, I would not argue with you there. I just think that that's why it's going to be fun to watch Impact. I still think that they have, just like all of the teams that have lots of talent and experience, have a chance to win, but it's going to be a little bit of a newer look for them. Again, if the Canadians can't come, and we don't really know exactly when things are going to get freed up, particularly for the first one. You know, I think that's the question, and the argument for Impact is going to be more a little bit up in the air and a little bit more with different variables in there at the first one than once things get a little bit going. Because I think they should be able to, you know, again, knock on wood, but with the vaccine and with the case counts dropping, I think by the end of the season, they'll probably have their whole roster out there. And there's no way that Bart's not going to give them enough opportunity to get those guys and play enough paintball so that they'll have their best look come the end of the season, especially with the change in the Champions Cup and how all that's going to, you know, towards the end of the season, that's going to be a really important push to try to get into that. But yeah, Impact is going to be a fun story to watch evolve, because it's not going to be the same story that it was a couple seasons ago where, you know, they're just beating the snot out of everybody because they're the best team out there, you know. But that makes it, I think it's better for the sport when at the top level, we don't really know who's going to win. The fact that the Ironman and Dynasty won last year, to me, is a really captivating story. I mean, the Ironman hadn't won a tournament in 10 years, and, you know, Dynasty into their 20th year anniversary, not having won a tournament in a couple seasons, and then they win the World Cup. I mean, and then Greenspan plays amazing as he did and wins and sweeps it while all the awards on the verge of 40 years old. I mean, it's just an outstanding story. I do agree with you. I think Dynasty this year could be real strong coming off of that World Cup victory. They're going to need production on that snake side. Everybody knows that. Their opponents know that. And they have some killers on that snake side when they're on their good days. So we'll see that, but they don't have, so when you look at X Factor, one of the names that you said, I mean, Billy Bernaccia has been a lead on that snake side for well over a decade now, and they always can count on him over there. So you just send Billy that way, and obviously they have varied game plans as to get him there, and every now and then he gets a rest. But, Dynasty's still looking for their Billy Bernaccia. But I believe, I mean, Urena is an athletic beast. Oswaldo has one of the nastiest snapshots I've ever seen, and when he is on, he's elite. So but that's the big question. Again, each one of these teams, unique stories. With San Antonio X Factor, I mean, Colt Roberts also wasn't at World Cup, and Colt Roberts is going to come back. So no Archie because he was hurt, no Colt Roberts because of COVID. And then now they get TJ Danner. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, yeah, of course, for sure. Anyone's a fool if they don't think the X Factor is coming to try to win every single tournament in 2021. So yeah, I do agree with I agree with your questioning impact, because that's going to be up to them to prove to the rest of the league that they can do it without the Canadians. And when I say do it, I mean win a tournament and be as dominant without that. And no J-Rab too. That's the thing. So J-Rab's not Canadian, but J-Rab wasn't at World Cup. So it's like, I just think that it's going to be it's going to be a fascinating story. It's definitely going to be a very interesting story for this one. Do you have one more name before I let you go? Last name, last conversation.
No, I think we kind of touched on everything I wanted to talk about. Do we mention the top 5 team MYX?
Hey dude, like I said, I was just going to give you one more opportunity to throw a barb their way.
No,
I always give Harris always drags your guys' names through the mud every chance he gets. So I figured I'd at least give you one last chance.
No, I'll be nice. Those guys are hurt physically and emotionally from last weekend, and I don't want to be rude to my friends. They're still picking the paint off the back of their heads.
I really hope that you guys play him at the first event. I really hope you guys play him at the first event. That would be a blessing for me personally, for the entertainment, and probably for a lot of paintball fans out there. I hope you guys play each other constantly throughout the year.
Hey, I hope we play them every prelim game. It's an easy win for us. It just chalks a W up on the board. We can move on.
Well, Henry, thank you so much for your time. You looked amazing this past weekend. You really look like you've been putting the time in, and it was a pleasure to watch you and the team play. I really liked how you handled that loss to Notorious, and because you just came out smashing and just decimated everybody on Sunday. I think you guys are definitely going to be in the hunt for wins in 2021. It's completely up to you though. So I hope that everyone can focus and actually be there, because that's been a problem for you guys. I hope Dan actually commits to the year. Sounds like he's going to, because when he's on, he's definitely a huge asset. But yeah, I think that Revo's going to be another one of these really captivating stories to watch this year. Any last thoughts? Anybody you want to thank before we sign off?
Obviously, just want to thank our coach, Pat McKenna, our other owner, Brett Madden, Dave Painter, sponsors, Point Eclipse, GI Sports, Top Gun Paintball, Ninja, Exalt, Carbon, New Balance, Freak, Weapons. Todd Martinez makes some of the sickest apparel in the game. Shout out to him. Without those people, none of what we do is possible. And I just want to thank all the guys on the team for putting the hard work in.
Well, thank you so much again for sitting down with me. Look forward to seeing you guys play this year. Also, everyone, again, not this weekend, but the weekend after that, March 19th through the 21st, we're heading down to Texas for the very first NXL event of the year, divisional event, Lone Star Open. Looking forward to it. Henry, hopefully got to get you back on the show here soon. Always like talking to you. Best of luck this year, everybody. See you guys next week.
Yep. Yes, sir. Have a good one.
The first National X-Ball League divisional event of 2021 is just on the horizon. Don't miss the NXL Lone Star Amateur Open, going down Friday, March 19th to Sunday, March 21st at Giant Party Sports Paintball and Airsoft Park, just north of Dallas, Texas. The gunfights will rage across 2 different formats, 5-man and X-Ball, with 3 different levels of competition in each format. Make sure to register your team by Wednesday, March 10th, which is the final day to get your squad signed up for the battle. Also, tune in to watch all the action going down on center court, only on